Good morning and welcome to another episode of IconicFreedom, the formula. We are setting the standard for accountability, the ownership of your choices and everything that follows, and responsibility, the ability to respond to your choices. Let each care for self and all will be cared for. So just to recap, because oftentimes there are new followers or new listeners, what is the formula? The formula, if you think about it like a periodic chart, depending on where you're listening to this podcast from, I pretty much have it as my background. And what occurred to me one time was that, you have these elements in life, right? And if you pull elements together and you mix them together, sometimes they make magic and other times they make destruction and it can be explosive. And so the formula in my hypothesis of life is that you choose the elements that work best for you. You know best for you more than anybody else. You use that internal authority of yourself, not outside of yourself, to decide what those elements are that you want to bring into the formula that becomes the standard by which you live by. And if you are being accountable for all of the choices that you've made and everything that follows, and you're being responsible to the choices, that's a pretty damn good formula, right? It does let each care for self and all are cared for. So I want to start with that. I try to remember every week that that's what I'm supposed to start with. Don't always do it, but I do my best that way, right? But last week we kind of explored how attachments to outcomes can really, imprison us in a sense. Not just emotionally, but mentally as well, right? We, for some people spiritually, if that's their thing too. But what happens when you let go? When you trust, and trust self, right? We don't trust others. We don't outsource our trust to people. We observe them. We trust in ourselves to make decisions for ourselves that are right for ourselves. And so what happens when we let go and we allow life to unfold? And that's what I wanted to talk about this week. This kind of came to me early in the week of last week after listening to last week's podcast, is that, there's an embracing of the unknown that, and not as a threat, but kind of as an exhilarating invitation. Now, if there are people out there that, are in fear of the unknown, then it's not going to be so thrilling. It's going to feel more like a threat. But if you think about it, if you embrace the unknown, you get a chance to release like these old tapes or records or these old scripts that are in your head. You stop rehearsing every outcome, trying to make sure that whatever the outcome is going to be perfect. In a sense, it always will be perfect for you, but that depends on how you filter the world. Whatever the outcome is of something, it is perfect for you, either for you to use it in your own development. Actually, not even as an either or. It is there for you to use in your own development. Now, whether you see that as good or bad, right or wrong, that's just your judging. That's your judgmentalness going on. Because if you look at it as like, wow, this really serves me to figure it out, that I want to go this way next time instead of that way. But if you stop rehearsing every outcome and to respond to an outcome rather than panic. If you listen to the last two podcasts, I talked about, being in the hotel and going down the hallway and getting stuck down in the purchasing area. Listen, I had a choice. I am never a victim. I could stay stuck and panic, or I could figure it out. And I could trust myself that I would figure it out. I wasn't attached to how it would get figured out. I just kept taking steps. Try this. Okay, well now nope, that didn't work. Well, try this. I wasn't sitting there judging all of these things going, oh, that was a bad choice. Bad key, bad elevator, bad stairwell. It was like, no. It was just like, that's a choice, that didn't work. I call the front desk. He puts me on hold. I call the front desk again. He puts me on hold. And I said it last week. It's the universe, basically responding, we can't help you here. But it was great because I didn't judge that guy that was putting me on hold. I didn't even care. He's just doing his job. It's nothing personal. It is about my experience and what serves me. And so I think to myself that when I wasn't attached to how it would get figured out and I just kept taking steps, that's where I had this moment, this little tiny epiphany, very quiet, comes in on tiptoe. That's my freedom. That's part of my freedom that makes up my standard, is that I'm going to figure it out no matter what it is. And the freedom of that, I can't even explain how enormous it was for me. When you are quiet enough to hear that whisper, instead of having life slap you across the face and knock you upside the head, but hear the whisper that you're confident enough to take the next step, and you are free enough to trust that life isn't against you. It's unfolding for you. It's opening every door to you. It's giving you every opportunity. And you have to decide, do I walk through the door or not? Or do I stay behind the door and I just wallow in my fear and my self-pity and my self-inflicted victimization? You know, we have a lot of old scripts, right? That, growing up, we hold on to things. We don't let go of them. I mean, you'd call it like emotional hoarders. They just want to hoard all of their past emotions, but they do it because of what reason? Because they like the victimization that's inflicted upon them that they can use as their biography. Listen, attachment's going to keep you stuck in like past versions of your life or of who you are and how life should have been or how it should be. I was listening to a song this morning during my walk, and the lyrics were, how have I come to this? How did I slip and fall? How did I throw half a life away without any thought at all? This should have been my time. But it's over. Well, that's the piece that I don't agree with. I don't think it's over. I don't think it's over until you take your last breath. And instead of looking at how life should have been or how it should be, how you use your ability to react to something is where you build your formula from. Listen, life is not a script. It's not a movie. It's not a TV show. It's not a musical. In a way, think about it, it's improvisational theater. I mean, it's all improvisational. Why? Because you don't know. If you ever took an improv class, I took one, I took, an entire semester of it, and I loved it because it made you think in the moment. You had to be so present in the moment that you could respond and react to the person that you knew you had no idea what was coming. No idea what was coming. That ability to flex, to be agile mentally, it allows you not only the outcomes that you desire, but it also allows the ones that could be. Because you have desires and you let it unfold and what it could be. And I guarantee you, if you've been doing this for any length of time, it always turns out better than what you think it's going to be. It always does. I have never seen it fail, ever. Because it requires what of you? To be open, to be accountable, and to be responsible. You have that trust in yourself, that inner authority. You're going to make the right choice for you. When people get, this is a thought that I wrote down this week, is that when people get confronted with the unknown, with the uncertainty, I think they panic and freeze. Or what else could they do? They could pause, they could listen, they could respond. You know, that rehearsal podcast really taught a lot, I thought, that no matter how something has occurred, just keep taking steps. You know, the story is what happened to you, but the life is how you respond to it. Wow, that's brilliant. Write that down. The story is how life is what happened to you, but the life is how you respond to it. Fear of the unknown, it isn't a fact. It's a reflection of how much we trust ourselves. I'm going to say that again. Fear of the unknown isn't a fact. It's a reflection of how much we trust ourselves. When you get to that level of freedom, there is no fear. I know it sounds strange to say, but you don't even fear death because you've owned every choice to that moment. And when you own every choice, there is no regret. And you remember, I make one step, then another. I make one choice, then another. Real accountability requires ownership. I made that comment before many times. I think it was one of the promos that I popped up there. Blaming others is always easy, right? Pointing fingers, always easy. Ownership is a challenge initially. It really is. Listen, I've been there, I know. But I'll tell you what, ownership is the most liberating thing I think I've ever done in my life. It gave me back my freedom. You know, everyone thinks that ownership is debilitating, that it's overwhelming, that it's a massive challenge. It's like, trying to lose weight. I'm never going to be able to do it. Well, if you don't start, you're never going to get there. If you don't stop putting all that crap in your mouth, you'll never get to the weight that you want to be. If you never start moving, you'll always be stuck. And I just think it's so amazing that my observation of myself and others is that when they do this, when they are full ownership of everything, of real accountability, that it's freedom. It's more freedom than you could ever imagine, because you're no longer trying to calculate and manipulate and control and, figure it out, and I got to weigh all the decisions. No. You have what's in front of you. You let it come to you. You think about the possibilities, the probabilities. Then you make a choice, because you say to yourself, I own whatever the outcome is, and if it's not the outcome that I desire or that I wished for, great. Okay, I'll make another choice. Sometimes those choices are right away. Got to do it right now. But you still trust yourself that you will figure that out. This idea that taking ownership, taking responsibility, is this overwhelming, massive, challenge, is again another fear. But it's a scam that you play on yourself because you don't want to take responsibility. That's why you don't move. That's why you don't choose. That's why your life stays stuck. If you're experiencing this in any way in your life, no matter what it is, a job, a relationship, a friendship, your data, whatever it is, it's because you don't want to take a chance and make a choice. And instead, people, they'll sit in their rocking chair for the rest of their lives. And they'll do nothing. And they'll see very little of this amazing universe that has given itself over to us. It has literally turned itself over to us and said, here is your playground, enjoy. And instead, people want to muck it all up. They want to deal with all the schmutz day in and day out rather than going, the world is mine and everything in it. You're never going to master this accountability if you keep looking to blame others. I said that last week, and it is such a reality. You got to own your choices, even in uncertainty. It is the only path to master this. When you are unattached, you can be responsive and fully present. And you start to move in harmony with the universal forces around you. It's like riding a magic carpet. Life meets you in each step. This is kind of my closing reflection, if you will. The unknown isn't something to fear. It's something to face and embrace. Embracing the unknown. See what I did there? And the way you face it comes down to your standard, your formula, your self-trust. Every unknown is either an adventure or an ambush. But the difference isn't out there. It's in you. You're the one that sees life as an adventure, or you're the one that sees life as an ambush. Life is happening to you or because of you. If you approach life rehearsing every outcome, you'll panic the moment things go off script, and you won't be able to respond. I did it for years. I used to respond by rehearsing everything that I was going to say to somebody. I don't even think about it anymore. Why? Because I know who I am. The healthier I got, the more clarity that I have to speak from. But if you're grounded in self-trust, you'll pivot. And that's where I am. I'm grounded in self-trust. I pivot, I adapt, I respond. I used my rehearse, I used to rehearse my responses to life like it was a play or a movie, because I grew up watching movies and plays and all the rest of that. And I was thinking, this is how you do life. Well, it wasn't until I was in my late 20s that I truly started to grow up and to mature. And I started taking responsibility and being accountable. And that's when it started to unravel. It started to unravel all of the schmutz from before, all of the, there's a word for that. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but, all of those patterns and those blankets and those Afghans, those things that you create, with needles and all that kind of stuff. It started to unravel all of that. But what it did do at the same time was it started to stitch together a life, my life. And hopefully this podcast over time is helping you to stitch your life back together again. Allow it to unravel. Allow yourself to be uncomfortable. Embrace the unknown, because life isn't out to ambush you. It has opened its embrace to you and said, here is your playground. What would you like to do with it? When you stop distorting reality through fear and shame or your unmet expectations, you will actually see every option in front of you. If you have an elitist attitude where you think that there are jobs beneath you or there are relationships beneath you, not that you would take something bad for yourself. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that when I was getting ready to do the job that I do now with Task Force, before I knew I was going to do that, I started looking at everything. I wanted to work at See's Candy as a person behind the counter. I looked at being a cashier at Fry's. I could have gone back into banking. Anything that I would have needed to do in order to make money, well, I figured it out. And it was amazing because in my endeavor of all of that, this opened up. I'm telling you, it was like stepping on a magic carpet. Because I kept going after all of the possibilities and looking at it, go, well, maybe this, or maybe that. My friendships, my relationships, same thing. I never would have met the people that I have in my life on a regular, semi-regular basis. Even the ones that are moment-to-moment interactions are beautiful and fun. Some of them I raise an eyebrow at. Others I engage, and, there's laughter and there's joy because I know how to respond to life. I don't need to rehearse it. I know how to be responsible, and I embrace my life and all of the choices that are in it. So, how do you train yourself to meet the unknown? You let go of needing to know. You let go of needing to know. You trust that you will know when the time comes. How do you train yourself to meet the unknown? One more time. You let go of needing to know. You trust that you will know when the time comes. And as always, until next time, stay sharp, stay free. Listen, if anything on this podcast strikes your fancy or resonated with you, please share it with your family and friends. You never know how it's going to help them in their journey as well as your own. I am everywhere. I'm on X, TikTok, Truth Social, Facebook, Instagram. So follow me on all those good links. They're all down below. And as always, let each care for self, and all will be cared for. Hit me up with any email or comments down below, and hit the like button and the share button if you would. I'd be grateful. Make it a great week, and we'll talk next week.